Hello. Thank you for joining today's webinar that is specifically on the topic of Service Assistant 5 and its use with what is known by Real Green as a consolidated database. Participants in Lawn Doctor's Contact Center are automatically enrolled in what Real Green calls a consolidated database. And there are some things that you really need to be aware of when it comes specifically to pricing, your unique price charts, and also invoice messages that you may want to uniquely be yours. And then we'll also talk today about how certain services, the product information, may also be impacted when you're involved and connected to the consolidated database as it relates to being a participant in Lawn Doctor's corporate contact center. So the first thing I'm going to do is present an overview. When it comes to programs and services that were created when you were enrolled in Lawn Doctor's call center, certain programs were created by Real Green, and these programs and the services associated with it are uniquely yours. So there are a few programs and the associated services that are connected with it that are uniquely yours. Those are the Lawn Doctor Maintainer Program, Bed Weed Control, Tree and Shrub Control, and if you're able to provide the service, mosquito control. Other than those services being created uniquely for you automatically, any other services in the consolidated database are in reality available to all users that are connected to the consolidated database. In order to demonstrate today's importance of using alternate price methods in Service Assistant 5, I am currently logged in, and thank you, Cheryl Tarkington. I'm currently logged in with Scott Tarkington's user ID credentials for Service Assistant, because at that franchise user ID and level, that is when this situation that I'm going to point out today presents itself when you're using SA5 and a consolidated database environment. So I'm currently logged in, as you can see over in the right-hand corner of my screen, as Scott Tarkington, and his franchise group number, well, actually the branch number is 1712. He only has one franchise branch, and his group number is group 1260. So when you go to services in Service Assistant, so you go into settings by clicking on the cog gear in the upper right, and if we were to go and look at services specifically, SERV will filter us down where I can see Program Job Setup in the bottom left. I'll click on the puzzle piece icon, and that will bring me into the available services that are in Service Assistant via what Real Green calls their service setup screen. If I click the drop-down list box, you'll see that there are many services that are available to this franchisee's level, and those services are listed. Some of those services you may already be using, some of them you maybe haven't used yet and may be planning to use. For today's example, I'm specifically going to center around the use of the correlation service, which has a prefix code of CA1 and the description of correlation service. If I click on that service, you can see that it is loaded, and we can see that the service code is CA1. we can see that the service description is correlation service. And if you look over in this area here, depending upon how many branches you have in your particular, operation scenario, this particular case, as I pointed out, the Tarkingtons only have one franchise branch, and that is branch 1712. If you have two branches, say 1708 and 1709, instead of saying 1708 and 09, it'll say two branches selected. So you can click the drop-down list box, and you'll be able to see both of your branches selected here. The issue that I'm trying to assist with addressing is based on the way Real Green currently has Service Assistant 5 programmed. This could give you the impression that this correlation service is uniquely for this branch, 1712, when in reality it is not. And if I scroll down, and this is where the problems begin to arise, if I scroll down and look at the price table that's currently associated with this is a price table with the group prefix of 1263. Now, in the case of the Tarkingtons, which I'm currently logged in as, their group number is 1260. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for a user that's logged in to think, oh, wait a minute, that is not my price table for correlation. Let me change that to my group number, which in this case, the Tarkingtons group number is 1260. You really can't do that because this correlation service, even though it says up here that it's available to branch 1712, as currently designed by Real Green, it is not exclusively that branch's service. The only way services are exclusively a particular franchise branch or group is if you create those services from scratch. If you create them from scratch, creating a new service code, new service description, and then save it to your system, it is exclusively yours. But some franchisees, understandably, are using services that already exist in the system. So they're accidentally going to the price table and selecting their group prefix price chart for that particular service, and they're good to go for a brief period of time until the next franchisee that's in the consolidated database realizes that either because they entered a sale for correlation or the call center maybe entered a sale for correlation and the pricing didn't come up as they would have expected it to. And what we're ending up with is kind of a tussle between franchises for control over the pricing for a given service that the way the software is currently designed, it gives you the impression that, oh, I see my branch up here, 1712, this service is uniquely mine, and it is not always the case, and it is very difficult to determine that's the case. At the end of this presentation, I will give you an example logging in with my user ID and password that'll be able to show you actually how many branches do see this CA1 correlation service. So if you want to use the correlation service, and it makes perfect sense to do so because correlation does not have any products associated with it, okay, you can use a correlation service, and if you're comfortable with the description that's currently available or you're not comfortable with the description that's currently available, there is functionality in Service Assistant 5 that gives you the ability to take an existing service that's available to everyone in the consolidated database and set unique pricing that's specific to your branch or multiple branches if you do have, more than one branch. And the way that is done is through what Real Green calls alternate branch messages and pricing. So for a moment, I'm going to leave the service setup screen. Remember that we are working with CA1, and the service description is correlation. I'm going to go up to the settings cog in the upper right again. I'm going to click on that, and now I'm going to type in the word alternate, okay, and it filters down to program job setup, alternate branch messages and pricing, as I explained a moment ago. I'm going to click on that icon, and it brings up the alternate branch messages and pricing form right here, okay? So in this case, I'm logged in as the Tarkingtons, and we can see that it is selected for this branch, 1712, which is theirs. Currently, we're looking at the service code bed weed control. I'll click the drop-down list box, and I'll go down to correlation service. So if I click on that, you can now see that for that service, even though it's available to everybody in the database, we can set up a unique price description and point it at, in this case, we've already pointed it at the prefixed for the group 1260, the aeration price chart. Also, we've changed the alternate message for the invoice because some changes were required in this instance. So you can make specific changes to the service and its associated invoice message, and you can point it at a price chart or price table that is uniquely yours. In this case, 1260 is the group. If you are 1263 as an example, you can type in 1263, and you could then filter for all the available price charts that you may have entered. If you don't see any, then you need to go into price chart setup and create a price chart for a given service. But in this case, we're going to not make a change and upset Cheryl Tarkington. We're going to go back to 1260, okay, and point it at her unique price chart correlation. So now I can click Save, and it will save that service that it's pointing at now, even though that it is a service that's available to all franchisees in the consolidated database or enrolled in the Lawn Doctors Corporate Call Center. And Cheryl Tarkington now has, for their franchise, for Correlation Service 1, okay, she now has that particular service pointing at their specific price chart, and they have also modified the correlation invoice message so it won't be pulling from the generic invoice message that's available to all those franchises that use that service. She has modified that message specifically to hers. Now, this may not work in all cases, the use of alternate branch pricing. I'm going to come out of this area for a moment, and we're going to go back to the individual service. Go back to the service setup puzzle piece icon. Click the drop-down list box again and go to CA1. It's important to understand that correlation service, CA1, does not use any products. if you had a given service like lawn renovation or some other service that may have specific products for your region of the country, you definitely do not want to associate products with a service that's available to everyone, because those products that are listed are available to everyone, and what could happen is if someone says, I don't use that given product, I use, instead of three-way, I use Trimec for weed control, and they change it and delete three-way and enter Trimec in as a weed control, then they have modified that product for everybody that's using that service. So once again, to reiterate, unless you create the service from scratch, that service is not uniquely yours when you're enrolled in Lawn Doctor's call center and you're in what Real Green calls the Consolidated Database of SA5. Now, to assist with this issue, okay, you're not always able to, as I pointed out, to easily tell that a given service is uniquely yours. I have created a list that was provided by me from Service Assistant from Real Green, and I've provided a kind of a summary of what I've just said over the last couple of minutes and demonstrated. This is a list, as Real Green understands it, of the services that are currently available to all users in the system that are on the Consolidated Database or enrolled in the Lawn Doctor's Corporate Call Center. So for a moment, I want to log out just to drive this point home. You can see that being logged in as the Tarkingtons, it looks like CA1, this particular service, correlation service, looks like it is uniquely theirs, 1712. So I am going to sign out as the Tarkingtons. I'm going to sign in with my user ID and password, okay, which gives me access to everything at admin level rights, okay. And once again, as I said, to drive the point home, I'm going to go back to the same location and type in SERV, go to the same service setup puzzle piece, click the same drop-down list box, okay, and go to CA1. As you can already see, there are many more services that are in this list. I click that service and logged in with my user ID credentials. Since it's showing me everything that's in the Consolidated Database, you can see that it displays 26 items selected. So that particular service, as I pointed out before, and at the individual franchisee's user ID and password login credentials, you see it looks like it's only available to you exclusively, one branch or two branches, whatever you currently are operating under. But you can see that in reality, there are 26 items that are available and pointing at that, meaning 26 different branches are using that same CA1 service or have the ability to use that same CA1 service. That concludes the training session for today. I understand that you're very busy at this time of the year. If you have any questions at all concerning are you properly set up for using a given service, or you need assistance with implementing the use of the alternate branch messages and pricing form in Service Assistant 5, do not hesitate to contact me directly. I'll be more than happy to connect to your system and walk you through how to properly set it up so that services that are in the alternate branch pricing setup, at least the pricing and the service descriptions are uniquely yours. If it's services that involve exclusive products that you're going to be using in your area, then I'll walk you through how to create a service and, if necessary, the services to roll into a program. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us today. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. Thank you.